Good morning, everyone, and welcome to episode 13 of our What If interview webinars, where we discuss and share knowledge on customer experience, digital transformation, and how to better serve customers via your digital channels. So for those who haven't joined us before, my name is Tracy Gray. I'm the head of marketing for Mando. We're a digital agency committed to simplifying digital experiences for everyone. So we work within regulated industries with companies like utilities and financial services, focusing on helping your customers to do those things that they really don't want to do. So I'm pretty sure we don't all wake up on a Saturday morning really excited about paying our water bill or having to submit an insurance claim. We make these experiences easier, giving customers time back to do the more exciting things that they want to do with their lives. So today we're discussing what if your digital strategy could accelerate the global climate agenda with our guest, Mark Simpson, Director of Client Services at Mando. So Mark has a wide range of experience helping customers and companies in regulated industries improve their time to market, increase digital leads, measurability, reduce the cost to serve, and accelerate their customer experiences. Just one note before we get started today, as with all of our sessions, we have my colleague Sarah on the call with us too. Sarah's going to be helping with logistics and just monitoring the chat there. So if you've got any questions or comments, pop them in there and Sarah will ask them at the end of the discussion. And we'll chat for around 20 to 25 minutes and then we'll move on to those questions and comments towards the end. So welcome, Mark. If you could introduce yourself, your background, and just tell us a bit more about what you do, please, that'd be great.
Yeah, absolutely. Hello, Tracy. Hello, everybody. My name is Mark, and what do I do? Well, I would describe myself as a positive, optimistic person who has a real energy and passion for technology, and particularly how it can be used to simplify people's lives and make the world a better place. I wouldn't say that I'm an expert in any one thing, but I do have a broad understanding and a broad knowledge across digital and across tech, particularly how it can be used to benefit people and businesses. I do have a job title, as you said, and I do have a job description that I take very seriously, but equally I don't allow myself to be bound by those constraints and those limits. As I described previously, I would say that my role in life and at Mando is somebody who can apply a broad understanding of technology in a creative way for the benefit of our colleagues, our clients, and most importantly, their customers.
That's excellent. Thank you, Mark. It gives us a good idea of what you do there. So just to get on to the discussion for today. So we've all lived and breathed the chaotic and completely unexpected year that has been 2020, with huge numbers of curveballs thrown from all directions at all of us. Most of us are now looking ahead to the next 12 months and seeing the back of 2020. We're all expecting some levels of uncertainty to continue, but I know that you at Mando have been identifying key digital trends that all businesses should be planning for in 2021. So we just want to discuss those in a bit more depth today. And you've said that the theme throughout each of these trends is simplicity and getting to the heart of things and removing the noise. So can you just start off the discussion by giving us an overview of those 4 trends?
Yeah, I can, absolutely. It's interesting there that you mentioned 2020. Coming back from the school run this morning, I was listening to a Robbie Williams Christmas album, and the lyric came on, "Oh, what a miserable year, but what a time to be alive." And I absolutely buy into that. Just in terms of the 4 trends, I think the interesting thing for me about the trends that we're talking about is that they're not trends that are exclusive to digital necessarily, nor are they trends that are necessarily led by digital. But they are all things that we as digital professionals can contribute to, and more importantly than that, will have to contribute to in a significant way in order to enable our respective businesses to make a meaningful impact next year. There are 4 trends, but you can wrap them up in one statement, which is care deeply about your people, customers, and the environment, and invest and innovate faster than you have ever done before to make the world a better place for them. It's as simple as that, really. In respect to the simplicity element, simplicity for me is about cutting out the clutter and focusing attention on the things that matter most to people. The trends that we're talking about, when we think about simplicity, we're talking about purpose and values and how they're communicated to a community of colleagues and customers in a manner that everyone can get behind a business's cause in a unified and coherent way.
Okay, great. That's a great summary to get started with. I want to just go into each of those trends in detail now, and I'll just unpack each of them and how they will affect our listeners. And we always like to do at these sessions is discuss some of the practical aspects that our listeners can begin to implement today, tomorrow, as soon as. So the first trend that we're going to discuss is a more human business. I know in the past, many organisations would have described themselves as being people-centric, and they probably have described themselves as that for many years. So can you just explain to us how this trend of a more human business is different to that?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. People have said they are people-centric, or businesses have said they're people-centric for many years, and they're absolutely right. You can go and look back through the history of the Sunday Times best companies to work for list and find lots of examples of businesses that do that really well. What we are starting to see, though, what we have seen this year, we'll see more of next year, is a change in a few key areas. The first one is a growing demand for accessible digital services, accessible to everybody, irrespective of need. Now, you might say that's nothing new. We're talking about designing and developing tools that cater for everybody. That's nothing new. Yeah. Accessibility has been talked about for many years, decades. It's been around for a long time, and a lot of people talk about it. You'd be absolutely right to call out those things. However, an article published by the BBC just a couple of weeks ago reported £17 billion in lost revenue for UK companies because of inaccessible websites. So this is still going on, and it's happening everywhere. The RNIB reports that the disposable income of people who are considered disabled globally equates to about $8 trillion. Which makes them the third largest economic superpower in the world. So there's a big commercial opportunity there, but more than it being a commercial opportunity and it being just the right thing to do all round, we're starting to see much more of a drive towards attracting people, really talented people who can be brought in to improve the culture of the business, ultimately the business's product, because of having that more rounded perspective and view on the world. I think the second area is digital skills. We've all heard to death that to compete in today's world, businesses need to be more digital. That's not to say that they will ever lose the human contact side of it, but digital skills are important because they can accelerate productivity, efficiency, and customer experience. And we're starting to see a big gap in the need for digital skills and the pace in which businesses are able to hire or train people with the right skills. And there are a couple of different areas to this. The first is consumptive skills, which are skills that are required to use technologies that have been built by other people. So a great example of this is Microsoft Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Teams, Zoom, CRM systems like Dynamics or Salesforce. These are technologies that people have built, and we need to train people or hire people who have the skills to use those systems. And that's difficult enough in of itself and really important. But when you get onto productive digital skills, which means creating the technologies that other people are going to use, whole different ballgame. To hire or train people in those skills requires a really broad understanding of digital and technology, things like agile delivery methodologies, systems integration principles, an understanding of omnichannel and which channels work best for the right scenarios, data, insight, analytics, all of these things. And it's a really daunting prospect for businesses to try to either hire or train people in those skills and get it right. And particularly, there's a big challenge around timeliness, because if you hire a developer that has a skill in a particular language or software, and that language or software becomes defunct for your business in 2 years' time, what are you going to do? So it's a really big problem, really growing problem, and one that companies need to get to grips with reasonably quickly.
That's great. Thank you. There's some really interesting points there. Just where you touched on, first of all, accessibility. Like you say, people have been talking about that for decades, but it sounds like we're still not getting it right if there's those level of fines being dished out.
It's always an afterthought.
Yeah.
You build a website and then you say, oh, well, we now need to test it to make sure it's AA accessible. And even when you're adhering to AA guidelines, okay, that's great, and that's more than a lot of people are doing. But it's the wrong way of thinking.
Yeah, it's not architected accessibly.
Yeah,
in the start.
Exactly. And a lot of people design and build things for themselves or for people like themselves. So we've seen some great examples with Santander, for example, where they have an Alzheimer's and dementia panel that contribute to their design phase, and they contribute to the testing phase to make sure that it works for people with those different types of needs.
Absolutely. Just to pick it up on the second point that you said there around digital skills, we've all seen the kind of recent, although not so recent, misguided government campaign around retraining in digital skills. Is this a really big issue, and kind of where's the shortfall?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think, yeah, we all saw the Fatima adverts in lockdown. Fatima, the ballet dancer who the government wanted to retrain as a cyber security expert. That's a hell of a leap, I have to tell you. I'm sure that a lot of people are capable of making that leap, but it's a leap nonetheless. It was incredibly distasteful and somewhat ill-timed, but grounded in the reality, the harsh reality, that there is going to be a huge skills gap over the next few years in the UK. It's estimated that about 3 million new jobs will be created over the next 4 years in technology in the UK. I think about 100,000 of those will be in cybersecurity, hence the government's push to try to get people to retrain in that line of work. And I think that what was correct about the government's campaign is that there will be a bigger demand for certain skills in 4 years' time and a lesser demand for other types of skills, and that's what they were trying to get at. 100,000 jobs in cybersecurity, 2 million jobs in software development, 2 million jobs over the next 4 years that we've got to find as an economy, as a nation, as businesses, that we've got to fill and train and get people into those jobs. It's a big challenge.
So if it's such a big challenge, what would your advice be for companies to actually tackle it, and what kind of hurdles would you foresee a company would encounter?
Okay. Well, first of all, how should companies tackle it? I think, first of all, acknowledge that it's a growing issue that needs addressing, first of all. Secondly, recognize the opportunity that exists within it. 2 million new jobs just doesn't happen by chance. It's driven by market demand. And it's driven by market demand because of the opportunity that creating software as intellectual property for your own business has many, many benefits. It enables you to perform better as a business. It enables you to identify and create new revenue streams. But we're also seeing beyond that, and it helps you to get better at developing software, by the way, which creates a virtuous circle. But further to that and beyond that, we're starting to see companies developing software and then licensing it to others who have similar needs. So a great example of this is BlackRock. BlackRock is an American, global asset management firm. They created Aladdin, which was a system that they developed to manage their $4 trillion worth of funds, of assets. They realized that every other asset management firm in the world would need a similar system. So they started licensing it out to people like HSBC, and others, and they now have $11 trillion worth of funds running through that system, which has not only created new revenue streams for them, but the data and insights that they're getting from other people using their system means that they can feed that back in, make it better, and stay well in the lead in terms of their competition. And okay, it's great that Aladdin are doing that, but I want to see a water company do that in the UK, create a bit of IP, whether it's around problem reporting, understanding the bill, whatever that might be, and license that out to every other water company, because they all need it. They're all pushing towards the same goal, all got the same purpose and values and challenges set by the regulator, and there's a huge opportunity there to do that.
Absolutely.
I think in terms of the second question, the hurdles, it's the usual suspects: investment, board buy-in, culture. The good news is that I think that people do realise that there is a challenge there. I saw a stat somewhere that 70% of leaders believe there is a skills gap within their organisation currently. 30% said there wasn't, and of that 30%, the employees were also surveyed, and only 10% of the employees thought that, or at least 1/3 of that 30% actually agreed with leadership. So it could be more like 90%, but there's a challenge there.
Absolutely. But we're going to move on to the second trend. So we're talking here about authentic values. So we know that more and more customers, employees and investors will vote with their clicks when it comes to ethical brands. It would be good just for you to cover what the important aspects are when it comes to a company's values.
Yeah, well, what we're not saying is that any business has to exhibit a particular value, although there are some really obvious ones that if you do exhibit, it's probably going to stand you in good stead. What we are saying, though, is that businesses do need to live out the values that they assign themselves to a lot more than ever before. We live in an open world where sharing is prolific, and instant reputational damage can happen very, very quickly. And we are now starting to see businesses say, do you know what, we're going to put our head above the parapet, and we are going to make ourselves accountable to the people, movements and communities that we want to be involved with. And I think that's going to be crucial. Businesses with strong ethics are now starting to outperform those without them. There's a new metric, ESG, which a lot of people are aware of. It stands for environmental, social and governance. And it basically means looking after people and the environment. Businesses that are adopting those practices are outperforming their competitors, and that will accelerate over the next couple of years. So it's not necessarily about making more profit. It is about attracting more investment, attracting more talent, making the world a better place to live in, and looking after your people. Absolutely.
And I want to pick up on one of those aspects of this trend in particular, which is around sustainability. We know that this is of growing importance for customers and employees and investors, as we've mentioned. And we know that there's hashtags like climate emergency, which has eclipsed climate year. So just thinking about it from a digital perspective, how can sustainability feature within digital projects, and how can it be made important?
Yeah, when you first think about it, it can feel like quite a leap.
Exactly.
I'm working from home. I'm sat in my home office on a laptop, and how can I contribute to the environment? How can my digital team contribute to the environment? How can my business contribute to the environment and be more sustainable? I think in terms of how things are measured, you have to set and measure KPIs and try to improve performance on an ongoing basis. That's fairly standard. But in terms of what those KPIs might be, there's a pretty broad range. Anything from how well engaged are our customer base with the environmental content that we have on our website. How do we measure that and improve that, such that we know if we can educate customers better on using water or energy more effectively, then we know that that's going to have an improvement on the carbon footprint of the region and the customer base. Other examples are powering down environments like UAT, development tests, which we can now do in a cloud-driven world. Powering down those environments means that they don't need the power to run, and therefore contributes to the environment. There are new technologies like serverless, which means that you don't need a server anymore to run your software. You can do it in the cloud, in a shared environment, and again, that will benefit the environment. So I think what I would advise people to do and encourage people to do is be creative. It might be that your digital team agrees to no single-use plastic. So don't use any water bottles that are contained within single-use plastic bottles, as an example. So there are lots of different things, but it's about getting that list down, deciding what you want to focus and measure, and move forward.
Absolutely. And you mentioned there about cloud technologies. How have you got any examples of how that could aid sustainability?
Yeah, I mean, I gave a few examples there. The one that comes to mind, though, is a really interesting story from Microsoft. They lifted a data center out of the sea just a couple of months ago. And obviously, didn't just get there by accident. They placed it there 2 years ago. The hypothesis was that using the natural cooling nature of the ocean, that they wouldn't have to use traditional energy sources to cool the data center, and that's a lot of energy. But they weren't really sure how it was going to work. Would it be under the ocean? Would it be less reliable? Would it go down all the time? Yeah. Actually, they found that it was more reliable than the land-based counterparts. So we're starting to see some great examples there of how innovation within technology could be used to change the world in a really positive, meaningful way. And if you look at Microsoft, they're really leading the way. They promise to be carbon neutral by 2030, carbon negative by 2050, replenish more water than they use, and that's going to stand them in really good stead and again contribute in a really good way.
That's great. That's a really interesting example. I think many of us have probably seen the picture of that data center coming out of the sea. We're going to move on to our third trend, which is around perpetual transformation. So we've heard the statistic that 85% of decision makers say they've got 2 years to make digital transformation happen. So are we talking there just a kind of a one-time only program for transformation until we've kind of reached this digital utopia, or how does that work?
Yeah, I mean, I think people have definitely seen transformation in the past as a one-time activity. That doesn't cut it anymore, and it's also a little bit more difficult than that. It's a little bit like Stoke City saying in 2 years' time we're going to play like Barcelona and win the Champions League. It's just not going to happen. Now the ambition is great, and I'm a Stoke City fan as well as an Everton fan, and I'd love them to do that, but it's more difficult than that. You have to change everything from the top to the bottom, and you have to change it daily. You have to make the players better, faster, and fitter daily. And in business, it's no different. You have to train people daily and make them better, faster, and more effective. So, transformation now has to be perpetual, has to be ongoing. It has to be frequent, repeated, never-ending, uninterrupted. Not a one-off activity. Okay, so if it's we're having to make changes constantly, I know from experience of seeing with some of our clients or some of our prospects that it's not always super speedy, both from an investment perspective, budgets that are allocated to digital transformation, but also the processes internally that support that. So how do you think companies can actually speed up that pace of change? I'll give two pieces of advice. One, get aligned, recognize that change is really important, and pace of change is important, and get aligned on that internally with what your pace of change is going to be. If the slowest companies are over here and Amazon is over here, where do you want to be on that spectrum? Where is it pragmatic for you to be right now? But crucially, understand that whatever you're investing in digital today, whoever you are, and all businesses are very different, it's probably not enough. You need to do more.
Okay, so thinking about that scale that you said, where some are acting very slowly and maybe not doing so much, and others like Amazon. I'm assuming that an example is going to be Amazon, but can you just expand on that and maybe give us a couple of examples of what good actually looks like in your eyes?
Yeah, I mean, these are fairly staggering numbers, but a couple of anecdotes that I picked up recently. One is Amazon changes its prices on its website 2.5 million times every single day, which means that every product on the website changes its price every 10 minutes.
Hopefully not the Christmas presents I just bought last night. Yeah.
Yeah, they will. They will have dropped the price for the first product you looked at to make them look cheap for everything else, and then upped it on every other product. So all in all, you paid more. They're very clever like that. But I bet you've already got those presents through your door this morning, and who doesn't want that reliability? The other one is Netflix. We spoke with a major utility company, a large utility company recently, and they hadn't performed a code release to their website in 18 months. This wasn't a client of ours, it was a prospect. 18 months they hadn't released any code to their website. Netflix releases code to its system every 21 seconds. So you've got 18 months over here and every 21 seconds over here. Now again, that's the difference between
good. That's the difference between not performing and great, isn't it?
It highlights the disparity between where people think they need to be and where some companies actually are.
Absolutely. So that's the aspiration then for, probably not to get to that level of Netflix, but certainly to speed up the pace of change.
It's the bar. Yeah, it's the bar.
Absolutely. Great, thanks for that, Mark. We want to move on to our fourth trend now, which is around trust paradox. So can you just explain to us what that paradox is when it comes to customers trusting companies with their data?
Yeah, well, obviously trust is important. Information security is important. We all know that. The word paradox is all about contradiction. And it's this contradiction that we want businesses to be more careful with our data, more ethical with our data, yet we're more willing to give it than we ever have been before. We all accept terms and conditions without reading them. We all click on the accept all cookies from every news website that we ever go to, even though we're agreeing to give them all of our data. The T's and C's is an interesting one. I don't know if you've heard the story that on April Fool's Day a couple of years back, all 7,000 people that bought a product from GameStation agreed to sell their soul to GameStation. They wrote it into the terms and conditions, and not one single person picked up on it. They all agreed to it.
I can imagine.
Just goes to show that nobody reads those things, and we probably should. It's really important.
Okay, so that's kind of, we talked there about kind of data, but what are the key aspects of this trend that we all need to be aware of?
I think if I can sum it up in 60 seconds, which is probably all I've got, I'll give one piece of advice, which is treat information security very, very seriously. Have a failure is not an option mindset to quality control generally, but particularly around data. That might increase your budgets. It might reduce time to market for certain projects and products. But the alternative is a 20 million euro fine or a 4% revenue fine from the ICO and everlasting reputational damage.
Okay, so we know that obviously you've said there about information security, and obviously that is a way that we can build trust with our customers. What do you think are the other key ways where we can build trust?
Don't lose your data to hackers.
Yeah.
It's obviously a really important one. And that's actually quite a difficult thing to do because these hackers are pretty damn good. But I think more so just being open and transparent with the exchange of data to value. You might remember the Target example from a couple of years back where Target knew that a teenager was pregnant before her father did. And because she'd been browsing on the family computer, they sent an email to the father announcing their congratulations and offering loads of pregnancy products. And they'd done that because of the browsing behavior that the daughter had.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's not a very good thing to do. That's a very quick way to damage trust in people. I saw a Netflix example just last night, actually, where they tweeted to all the 57 people that had watched this particular Christmas movie 18 days in a row, who hurt you? They'd use their data to mock their customers and receive quite a backlash. It wasn't a cool thing to do.
Oh, yeah, I can imagine.
Now using data to personalize TV recommendations, great. We all scroll through Netflix for about 30 minutes before we watch anything. So that's good, but yeah, don't overstep the mark.
Yeah, very good lesson there. Okay, that's great. Thank you for that, Mark. So we're just going to, after discussing all of those 4 trends, I think one key question that I've got there that we haven't covered is, what are the risks of not paying attention to these trends and not implementing any of these during 2021?
Yeah, good question. I mean, you might come to a digital trends briefing expecting to hear about personalization or chatbots or SEO, UX. Yeah. All those things are really important and have real benefits, but I've never known a business go out of business because of not doing one of those things. There are a lot of dinosaurs out there unaware that a meteor is about to strike down upon them and banish them to extinction. And I can confidently say that if you care deeply about your people, your customers and the environment, and you invest and innovate faster than you've ever done before to make the world a better place for them, you will be successful and you will be in business for a long time to come.
Great, thank you. I think that's a very good summing up of everything we've spoken about, and hopefully there won't be many dinosaurs among our listeners there. So just wanted to move on to some questions. Appreciate we've just gone a couple of minutes over, but we've only got a couple of questions. So Sarah, if you can just come back on screen, thank you, there you go. And if you can just ask those for Mark, that would be great.
Yeah, great, and just a great discussion, so thank you so much. And Mark, everyone's loving your jumper, so lots of love there.
Well, I did say to Sarah this morning I was going to put my Santa jumper on, but realised that this webinar might get aired in January and therefore might not be the best thing to do. So I went for a jumper that is totally Christmassy, but that could pass for a good January jumper as well.
Yeah, I'll completely ruin our on-demand link if not.
That's why I didn't say Christmas, but you've just broken it, so it's fine. Anyway, so the first question is about digital skills. So you mentioned that at the beginning. Is there a clear definition of what constitutes as digital skills?
No, absolutely not. Because I think the way that I would define them is in the 2 things I mentioned before, consumptive and productive. Consumptive is reasonably easy to understand. It's about being able to get to grips with a particular piece of software or system and use it to varying degrees. Take Excel as an example. Lots of people use it as a lightweight database. They can maybe do some basic formulas in there. And then you've got some real Excel wizards who can write macros and do all kinds of clever stuff with it. The productive skills are much more difficult because it's not just about having the skill, it's about understanding the broader principles in which make software development successful. So all those things like data and insights, the reason why Amazon can change its prices 2.5 million times a day, because of the amount of data that it has and the systems that underpin that. The fact that it leverages cloud computing and all of their systems are integrated in a really seamless way. They know just how personalization works. If you've got an understanding of those principles, then you can make it work. But that's a really big challenge.
Yeah, definitely. Trace, have we got time for one more, or?
We'll do one more question, yeah, and then we'll
Okay,
end.
so the next the next one is, I'm keen to implement a stronger approach to sustainability, and it's great to see utility sector doing that. Do you think the financial sector needs to learn more from that?
Yes, absolutely. I think every sector needs to learn from it, and I think everyone needs to do their bit. And there are all ways in which we can contribute. And I think, you know, I referenced the Santander example before about having the dementia and Alzheimer's steering group as part of their digital production process. What I didn't mention is that 50% of Santander colleagues are dementia friends. They're trained in dementia and Alzheimer's, you know, which again is a pretty big challenge when you consider how many people they have working for them. So I think that if everybody's contributing to this mix of people and ethics and sustainability and the environment, then we'll turn this climate emergency around reasonably quickly.
Yeah, a better future for everyone. Back to you, Trace.
Absolutely.
That's great. Thanks, Sarah. So yeah, apologies that we've run a few minutes over. I'm glad that most people have been able to stick around. But we will end there. So just want to say a big thank you to Mark. It's been a really enjoyable and hopefully very interesting conversation for everybody listening. Yeah, thank you very much and have a great rest of your day.
Yeah, I've enjoyed it too. Thanks, Tracy, and thanks everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a great Christmas,
everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye.